Here are your week 14 fantasy football running back rankings. We noted this in stats versus film this week, but there are 5 running backs in half PPR scoring that are scoring more per week than the number one wide receiver, which is at 18.3 points. That's Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Devon Achane, all 23 to 19 points per game. And Hayden, all were selected in the top 22 overall selections when drafts closed this past September. That is unreal, incredible consistency.
Yeah, and it keeps going down even beyond that. I was looking at my top 12 running backs this week, and all but one were top 20 running backs, and most of them were just like literally like the top 12 running backs in my preseason rankings and our preseason rankings. The alone exception has been Javonte Williams. We'll get to him, and he's kind of wavered between an RB1 and an RB2. We've had a couple moments from like guys like Rico Dowdle kind of coming out of nowhere, but for the most part, you needed the running backs in rounds 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like, that's it. Like, if you don't have these guys, and trust me, the RB1-2 border this week, I feel pretty good about. Do not ask me questions about the RB2-3 border. Like, when we get to running back 20 to 26 this week, you guys will see the names, and I think like the projections get like cut in half. So hopefully you drafted some running backs early.
Hopefully you did. Let's talk about them, because your running back 1 this week is Jahmyr Gibbs. And really like multiple must-win contests for the Detroit Lions the rest of the way. This is against the Dallas Cowboys. Honestly, despite how great he has been this season, again, we just mentioned one of the top 5 scorers of the position. Over the past 6 games, it has been a roller coaster in just purely yards per carry. 8.0 to 2.8, then 9.5 to 3.2, 14.6, then to 3.4. Certainly catches some passes in there too, but it is noteworthy that since trading for Kyren Williams, 3-game sample, the Dallas Cowboys defense allowing just 3.3 yards per carry to running backs. So we'll see what happens here against this Lions offense.
It's actually a very bad matchup if you are only caring about runs right up the middle. Like you said, the Cowboys, they're just way better at defensive tackle. They're also using a lot more 5-man fronts by choice because they have 3 defensive tackles and kind of some up-and-coming edge rushers. So that's a way to get all those guys on the field. And the interior offensive line play for Detroit is one of the reasons why they're no longer an elite offense. So like if you only looked at that, it's a bad matchup. Then you kind of just zoom out from there. The Lions are projected for nearly 29 points. It's the second most of the week. They're not going to have Amon-Ra St. Brown. And we showed the chart with the Devontae Adams chart. Amon-Ra St. Brown is second in expected touchdowns. So you start removing the guy that scores the other amount of touchdowns aside from Jahmyr Gibbs from the offense, and they're projected for 29 points. How could you not love this? So get him to the perimeter, catch more passes than normal. I still think the linebackers are pretty weak in general for Detroit. Same thing with the secondary. So yeah, like if you're going to run between the tackles, is it a good matchup? Absolutely not. But there's other ways you could use Jahmyr Gibbs.
Speaking of running between the tackles, one of the more underrated players in that area, Devon Achane is your running back 2. This is against the New York Jets on the road. He has at least 20 touches in 5 straight games, at least 120 rushing yards in 3 straight games. He leads the league in 10-plus yard run rate. He didn't even have a catch last week. Devon Achane, superstar.
Yeah, I kept going back and forth between Etienne and Gibbs for my RB1 spot. So the last 3 games for the Jets, and keep in mind, they just traded away Kyren Williams. They gave up 28 half PPR points to Bijan, 22 to Derrick Henry, and 30 from Travion. So that's the last 3 games. So Devon Achane's been a total monster here. The only reason why I dropped him to 2 is because the team total for the Dolphins is only at 21 3/4 points versus, almost 29. So Pick'em Lobby sees the yardage the same. Gibbs at 117 total yards. Devon Achane 113 and a half total yards. They're just monsters.
I think the consensus rankings have Achane number 1 and Gibbs number 2. So like you said, back to back there. Next is James Cook, your running back 3. This is against the Cincinnati Bengals. We noted this, that coming out of the bye week, when maybe there were some questions about the Buffalo Bills, what would they lean into? It has been James Cook, averaging 140 total yards since that week 7 bye, according to Rich Rebar in his worksheet. That's despite facing 8 or more defenders in the box on a league high 55% of his runs. Now, that might be also because he has faced 8 or more defenders in the box on a league high 55%, because if you break 1 tackle on the second level, you are off to the races for big plays because there are fewer defenders on the third level. And again, this Bengals defense struggles to tackle at those specific positions too.
Yes. Yeah, that's putting it lightly. The Bengals are allowing 2.6 more fantasy points per game than the second worst fantasy running back defense. We've talked about it every single week. And then last week, like you mentioned, the Bills went extremely run heavy. 20% neutral pass rate last week. Like that is a bonkers game plan. It worked, and I would see them doubling down with it once again. So like last week when they ran the ball a ton, no surprise here. 26 expected half PPR points for James Cook. That was a season high for him. Right now the Bills are projected for 29 points. So I do think it's these top three guys, and then it's kind of that next tier. And right now, James Cook, this is just rushing yards, not total yards, just rushing yards, 96.5 projection in the underdog lobby right now. That makes sense to me.
Bijan Robinson is your running back 4. This is against the Seattle Seahawks. I cannot wait for this matchup because the Falcons suck, but when you watch it every single week, Bijan Robinson is stellar. He's amazing. He's making these cuts that really no one else can. Guess who's arguably the best in the league at shutting down opposing running backs?
Yeah.
That is the Seattle Seahawks, a league low 3.5 yards per carry and 66 rushing yards per game, which is third at the position.
Bijan rules, but at the same time, Falcons projected for 18.5 points. You mentioned the Seahawks defense. They're just elite. They kick ass up front. And Bijan, at least, there's some times where he loses some goal line carries to Tyler Algier. So breaking ties against him versus the true elites.
Jonathan Taylor, your running back 5, is at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Has not scored a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games. Didn't realize that until Reeves pointed out in his worksheet. The Jaguars have actually been one of the best run defenses in the league. It makes sense. They just acquire massive dudes and place them in all the gaps.
Correct.
If you look at, again, I think it's CSV_enjoyer on Twitter. He not only has positive rushing for offenses, but also positive rushing defense on each gap as well. And the Jaguars only have 1 rushing lane with negative, I should say positive EPA against.
Right.
So another really fun isolated matchup here for a rushing attack that has struggled to reel off those big plays in second halves lately.
My note for Jacksonville's a lot simpler and it's probably less good, but they've allowed 64 rushing yards per game to running backs. That's the fewest in the NFL. So we'll see about Trayvon Walker here, but even without him, they've been really good. So Colts still projected for the 8th most points in the week. Daniel Jones, he's healthy enough to play. He's not himself. He can still sling the ball. So I'm not all that worried about the Colts offense, but you're not going to see Daniel Jones QB sneaks and zone reads at the goal line, which I think is actually probably a good thing for Jonathan Taylor. Also, just like some really weird things have happened to the Colts like the last month. I think that will eventually even out, but Jacksonville's defense against the run is legit good.
Here's my pick of the week. You ready? Jonathan Taylor receiving work. Okay. 10 receiving points to backfields. That's 26th across the league is where this Jacksonville defense ranks at this moment. If you look at Jonathan Taylor this season in terms of catches per game, in terms of receiving yards per game, he's actually trending for, I think, the highest of his career, at least since the first couple years. So that might be an area that if Shane Steichen can take advantage of it, which he has multiple times this season, one pass could see, 15, 20 plus yards here for Jonathan Taylor. It's not quite in the underdog section yet, but that also means that you guys, whenever you're watching this, can take advantage of it as a higher. So go and look at that Jonathan Taylor higher receiving yards, either receptions or receiving yards. And the best way of doing that, use promo code the show, click the link in the description down below, and I'll give you $75 in bonus cash if you play $5 for the very first time. We're in over 40 states, so I'm sure you can play an underdog wherever you live right now. Okay, talk to me about Derrick Henry against the Pittsburgh Steelers as your running back 6.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers just got absolutely obliterated by the Bills last week on the ground. Derek Harmon, their first round defensive tackle, he's injured right now. So the Ravens are 9th in projected points. Derrick Henry's very live for multiple touchdowns. The success rate's a lot lower than it typically is. I posted the short yardage success rate for him, and he's like bottom 5 among the qualifying running backs there. So the offensive line's not as good. Lamar's just like not seeing the field as well as he typically does. So there's some warts to the offense, but there was also like some really fluky stuff that happened that last game. I thought they were moving the ball maybe a little bit better than given credit for. So I feel like decent about the spot here. The Steelers defense, they're just okay to me. Like they don't really move the needle. So I think this is a fine enough matchup. Derrick Henry in the last month with Lamar Jackson back. He's the RB9 on RB8 usage.
Yeah, they're 6-point favorites here. So hopefully we don't get into a situation where his snaps dip below 50% when trailing in second halves like we have seen in other contests. Josh Jacobs, your running back 7. This is against the Chicago Bears. Important matchup for both teams. I mean, right now, Chicago number 1 in the NFC. This is a later kickoff in the 4:25 window with the Packers favorites by 6.5 points. That is an environment we typically love here with Josh Jacobs.
Right. If I knew he was fully healthy, then I think there'd be a chance I'd have him as like my RB4 this week. The Packers are 6th in projected points, about 25.5. The Bears haven't had healthy linebackers for weeks. We don't know. We're recording this really early on Wednesday, so we don't know if those guys are going to return. Their secondary guys have returned. But in weeks 1 through 10, when he was healthy, he was averaging 18.3 half PPR points. And Chicago Bears, even if they get some of their linebackers back, their defensive line has not been stopping the run for most of the season. So last game, coming back from that injury, he lost a couple more snaps than usual to Emmanuel Wilson. I'm guessing with 10 days to like come back from like his return, I'm guessing he's going to get back to more of his usual workload. But at the same time, Jordan Love's just been hitting, when he's hitting these deep passes, like that means no fantasy points for Josh Jacobs. So he's pretty dependent on the goal line stuff, but the Packers are projected for a bunch of points. And typically that means a tutty for Mr. Jacobs.
Bucky Irving immediately back into your top 8 here. Hand up, discussed it on Stats vs. Film, was not expecting Bucky Irving to get back to, running back 12 in terms of touch percentage this past week with running back 10 of the rushing attempts. He looked great. And I'm sure the Bucs want to feed him even more down this stretch so they can win the NFC South.
Big game here for Tampa. All of them are. They're 7th in projected points at 25.25. Bucky played most of the second half of that game. That was a close game. So Rachaad White started. I'm going to guess Bucky Irving starts this one. He's projected for 71.5 rushing yards over on Underdog. So the other guys are going to mix in for a couple snaps. So we're not going to get like crazy amount of work here. And Tampa Bay's offense has been a little bit worse this year without Liam Cohen and some injuries up front, and Baker's playing through stuff and their wide receivers playing through stuff. But this is like more or less, this is a very good spot for Bucky Irving. So he's a low end RB1 right now. And you should feel good if you somehow were able to sneak into a game that matters in the final week of the regular season.
Let's talk about Javonte Williams. He is your running back 9. This is at the Detroit Lions, averaging 80 total yards per game over his past 7 contests. That's after the opening 5 weeks of the season. That was at 105 yards. So in this matchup on Thursday Night Football, the highest total of the weekend at 54.5. If that 80 yards sustains itself, which it might against this Detroit Lions defense, especially as slight underdogs on the road, we basically need a touchdown here for Javonte.
Right. The good news is they're projected for the 5th most points on the week, about 26. So he's a positive regression guy. There's like obviously more target competition with Pickens and CeeDee Lamb scoring from deep than like Javonte Williams at the goal line. But he's still in a great spot. Like he doesn't come off the field very much. He played 78% of the snaps this last week. The team total is really good. He's the RB10 in usage this month. He just hasn't scored as many fantasy points. That happens. Like I posted the chart, usage and like the expected fantasy points and actual fantasy points over the entire season. The correlation, it's like 87%, which is as good as it gets. If you're on the field, you score fantasy points. He's eventually going to score some fantasy points. The only thing I can say negatively about this is the Lions play a lot of base defense, lots of 3 linebackers out there because they have a lot of depth over there, which typically means that you can pass the ball on them, especially with like Terry and Arnold, their top corner out. So maybe the Cowboys stick with a pretty pass-heavy game plan here, but maybe you just get lucky. Javonte Williams is at the goal line after they move the ball down the field.
Kyren Williams, running back 10. We got something from, I think it was either Jeremy Fowler or Dan Graziano today, that rest of season Rams still expected to basically flip series between Kyren and Blake Corum. Guess what? They believe it has paid off for both Kyren and Blake Corum.
It has.
With their eyes. We think that too. And this offense is also just better than it was last year.
Right. This is kind of where he's been for most of the seasons. Since their bye week, it's almost been like exclusively drive-by-drive rotation. It continues to work. So Williams is the RB14 and RB30 usage this month. So it's like not the same level usage as it typically is, but at the same time, Rams are 3rd in projected points up at 28. So I can only drop them down so much. There's a lot of backfields we're going to get to over like the next 10 to 20 names here where it's split backfields, and their team's projected for 20 points. So I would much rather have it with Kyren Williams. He's able to create some more explosives this year than previous. So yeah, I think the team's better than we thought, but the usage is kind of similar to what we were projecting early on.
Breece Hall is your running back 11. This is against the Miami Dolphins. As soon as, they made the deals and the trades at the deadline, and also Garrett Wilson exiting the lineup, they've been feeding Breece Hall at least 20 touches in 4 of the past 5 games. When these teams played back in week 4, Breece Hall got 111 yards. I would say the Dolphins defense actually played quite well last week, the first half. And so despite them losing pieces and trading some away, they've been playing better as a group as of late.
Yes. I think the last 5 weeks of the season, the Dolphins are top 5 against fantasy running backs. And you've seen that in some of the numbers. Like they had a first round defensive tackle, Kenneth Grant, big as a house. He's probably just playing better. I like their coaching staff in general. Like their defensive coordinator knows what he's doing. There's just been a lack of skill back there, but they're starting to figure it out. But like you said, the amount of volume he's getting, it doesn't really matter. You're getting all these touches. He's probably more live for goal line carries with Tyrod, who's not going to run as much as Justin Fields would. He's also going to catch more passes with Tyrod Taylor versus Justin Fields. I think the offense will just pick up more first downs with Tyrod. So kind of everything's going in Breece Hall's favor, except they're only projected for 19 points. But even when they are, he's still more than capable of 100+ yards and a touchdown because there's just very few guys to get the ball to.
Hair loss. Many men suffer it from ages, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. And if you think you are starting to thin and look in the mirror every single day, and it's going back and back and back with that receding hairline, now's the time to do something about it. And I know a big hang up, a big stumbling block is, man, it's just going to take way too much time. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. So Hims brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. And there are no hidden fees. There are no surprise costs, just real personalized care on your schedule. So for simple online access to personalized and affordable care for hair loss, ED, weight loss, and more, visit hims.com/underdog. That's hims.com/underdog for your free online visit, hims.com/underdog. Individual results may vary based on topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Featured products include compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. See website for full details, restrictions, and important safety information. Thank you, Hims, for sponsoring the show. Here's Chase Brown. He's your running back 12. I think Joe Goodberry tweeted out that the Bengals offense is now top 5 in rushing DVOA all season long. That is so different than it was to open the season. A lot of factors have happened since then. We did see Chase Brown's routes drop off last week with Samaje Perine back. That is a concern here when, they are 5.5 point underdogs. But guess what? This Bills defense can be run on. I know that with Joe Burrow back, Hayden, I'm sure he wants to just pass from the first series to the last series. But they'd be kind of wise to lean into the running game early on here, I think.
I mean, that's pretty much how my write-up went, where I was conflicted on how I should rank Chase Brown, because with Joe Burrow back, that's good news for Chase Brown. With Samaje Perine back, that's bad news for Chase Brown. It's a great matchup if they want to run the ball, but the Bengals never want to run the ball. But they've actually been decent at it. There's a lot more duo runs. They've invested in the offensive line a little bit. They got Alex Kappa the hell out of there finally. So they're just, the offensive line's a little bit better up front. But the Samaje Perine stuff, last 3 games when Samaje and Chase Brown have been out there, he's averaging 14.4 expected half PPR points, which is a kind of about where I have him ranked here. But the Bills, man, the way you beat them is you run against them. It's so obvious. They're 3rd worst against fantasy running backs this year. Their corners are actually very good. It's their linebackers and defensive tackles that are the problem right now. So they'll be tempted. I'm actually very curious on how this one's going to go. Yeah.
Okay. RJ Harvey all the way up at running back 13 for you. What we learned last week was, at least I felt, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, he seems to be their player inside of the 7, inside of the 10-yard line.
Definitely.
We've seen other situations this year with J.K. Dobbins, that they would take him out and put R.J. Harvey in for these sweet third down goal line package things.
Mm-hmm.
This one, it was more than just those plays. It was basically everything. And because of that, that gives you an out where he rushes for about 3 yards a carry to have touchdown scored on top of it. So if we already have that potential touchdown viability here and a matchup that is much more conducive to running all over against the Las Vegas Raiders, this might be like the full package here for RJ Harvey.
Yeah, he's not going to play the 2-minute drill. Jalen McLaughlin will get a couple carries, but at the goal line, it should be RJ Harvey. I think 2 weeks ago when he lost that one touchdown, Jalen McLaughlin, he was just like winded. He was played a bunch of snaps right before that, and they had to rotate him in. I thought last week was more reminiscent of what's going to happen to the rest of the season. So 17 expected points last week for RJ Harvey. That was by far a season high. He handled all the goal line stuff. The Broncos this week are projected for the 10th most points across the league at 24. They get the Las Vegas Raiders. If you guys watched that game last week, you watched the Kamani Vidal run where they hit the perimeter and he beats guys to the edge. The linebackers and safeties were nowhere near that at all. So it's a good spot. I haven't loved the RJ Harvey stuff on film to me, but the Broncos offensive line is really good. They can use RJ Harvey as a pass catcher in the design game, and then he's going to be the goal line back. So largely, I don't really care if the running back's very good or not. When you get the ball, you score fantasy points at this position, and he should get the ball a ton.
Ashton Jeanty, running back 14 against the aforementioned Denver Broncos. He's had at least 8 targets in 3 straight games, at least 5 targets in 5 straight games. He's going to need it because he's averaged 2.9 yards per carry in the last 5 games.
Ashton Jeanty is the biggest PPR scam going right now. Like, that's like not an exaggeration. And last week, new play caller. So what do? They run the ball like crazy. I think it was a 33% neutral pass rate, which is disgusting because they have like no chance to run the ball. And then when they were passing the ball, it was screens and little checkdowns to Ashton Jeanty because they don't have a really good passing plan right now. So he's been the RB17 on RB11 usage this month. That's kind of where he's been the entire season. He's extremely inefficient. The supporting cast is terrible, but he gets the ball all the time. And I think he played all but 1 snap this last game, maybe before total garbage time. So I'm very nervous. They're projected for 16.5 points. You get the Broncos here, but he does not come off the football field.
Kenneth Walker III, this will not frustrate anyone, is your running back 15. It was a blowout last week against the Minnesota Vikings, thanks to 4 turnovers and a pick 6 by the opposing quarterback. Let's keep in mind the opening 3 quarters of last week. Kenneth Walker outsnapped Zach Charbonnet 31-18, and then also doubled up his touches from 16 to 8.
Right. You can see on the Underdog Network, and I'm sure Weaves is showing it here. Yeah, the fourth quarter, it was all Zach Charbonnet and then all MG, which who would that even be? Do you remember?
Myles Gaskin.
Myles Gaskin, of course.
He has since been cut, I believe.
Okay, well, it's not Holani anymore. So it should be Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. The reason why I'm going with a more aggressive ranking with Kenneth Walker is the Seahawks are 4th in projected points, up at 26. What do we always say about the Falcons defense? They're light in the shorts. So what are you going to do? You hopefully should be able to run on them a little bit here. In the 5 games since the bye, Kenneth Walker, it's only been 10.2 to 13 expected points. He's definitely an RB2, but you can definitely sell me on the upside in this matchup, in this team total. And you guys are going to see there's no bell cows left. Like maybe the next guy is the last bell cow. Everyone else is rotating snaps, and I would rather rotate snaps with my team projected for 26 points.
Totally fair. Quinshon Judkins is not rotating snaps unless they're down big on the scoreboard. But guess what? Home favorites for the Cleveland Browns here. Now, only a 19-team projected total, but home favorites by 4 points. I am slightly nervous about Jeffrey Simmons and company shutting down this offensive line. But guess what? We have seen Quinshon Judkins be productive, even if he's given 0 room to run, because he just stacks up these runs over and over again. And this is the environment to stack up those runs for 4 quarters.
Totally agree there. Jeffrey Simmons against this offensive line makes me very nervous. But if you guys have been watching the Shedeur Sanders stuff, they do not trust him in the normal drop back game. It's run, screen. And Quinshon Judkins could be part of the screen game here. We'll see about Dylan Sampson's injury. Like you said, the team total is actually higher than it typically is. And he's very good. So even with Jeffrey Simmons there, if you hit this thing to the outside, Quinshon Judkins could boogie. So, and I think that he can beat these linebackers and safeties and corners in Tennessee. So I'm nervous about Jeffrey Simmons, but aside from that, this is like as good as it gets for Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah. I mean, if we're being honest, against this Titans defense, kind of amazing that the Browns are only projected for 19 points.
Yeah, but also
that's
it does
very
make a
telling.
lot of sense. Yes.
That is very telling. Okay, Saquon Barkley. I'm sure people in the comments have been saying, "Where's Saquon? Where's Saquon?" Well,
they're studying fantasy baseball. Yeah, they're on to the other thing.
Is there anything else you want to add other than enjoy your fantasy baseball season?
Yeah. Well, so what did you say the Browns were projected for this week? Like almost 19?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the Eagles are projected for 21 3/4. By the way, the Minnesota Vikings, have you guys been watching their offense? They're projected for more than the Eagles this week. I mean, it's not a good spot. So the scheme's bad. The offensive line's bad. And then when they get to the goal line, it's all, Dallas Goedert and the tush push. So it's just hard to for Saquon Barkley to make do. So the one weakness of the Chargers defense all year has just been these perimeter runs that he can just completely gash. Maybe they can lean into that, but that's a backup tackle and their tight ends can't really block right now. So, this is where he's been.
I agree. They're going to give him a chance though to be successful in this game first. And it's not like this Chargers defensive line is totally stacked. So if this is a chance and maybe the Eagles offensive linemen close their eyes and squint their eyes and, convert the Chargers uniforms into Giants uniforms, then he has a chance this week. Because I kind of get nervous about the passing attack against all the zone defense that Jalen Hurts is going to face here.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a fine enough matchup, but the reality is it's the environment for Saquon Barkley that's totally middling.
DeAndre Swift off a huge week for the Bears rushing attack now goes on the road at Green Bay. I mean, this is December football at its finest. And right now the Bears have one of the better rushing attacks in the league.
Yeah, they've just been drilling the outside zone stuff that fits DeAndre Swift. The offensive line's gelled. They're getting buy-in from their wide receivers. They've got 2 tight ends that they can rotate out there. So very versatile offense. And DeAndre Swift's been the man. So since the bye week, there's been 7 games with Kyle Monangai. He's averaging almost 15 half PPR points. Now, most recently, he is legitimately losing half of the snaps out there. So I don't want to project that. And this is a very difficult matchup. They only project for 19 points to get the Packers defense here. But I'm conflicted because they just ran through the Eagles. And the Packers run defense isn't as good as the Eagles defense to me.
Right.
And I looked at this last 5 weeks. The Packers defense has allowed the 3rd most running back carries, which I find interesting. So I do think they're going to try to run the ball here. And he can rip off explosives.
You can run right at this Packers defensive line. I think that Ben Johnson might lean into that. We've seen him run 6-7 straight plays too. Yeah. So we'll get to Monangai in a little bit. I am a bit surprised that he's about 8 spots difference here when they're going drive by drive.
Yeah, but DeAndre Swift gets the most drives. And I still think that DeAndre Swift is more likely to catch passes. He plays a 2-minute drill. And he's also, I think, still more likely to rip off a 50-yard play because he's just more athletic than Monangai. But it is close.
The Bears total at 19. I understand it's at Lambeau. That might be the one that I have my eye on the most that I disagree with the books.
Yeah.
I could be totally wrong there. Travis Etienne is up next as your running back 19. This is against the Indianapolis Colts. The Jaguars really couldn't get their rushing game going last week. Do you think they can change that this week?
Possibly so. No DeForest Buckner for Indianapolis, no Sauce Gardner. So the Colts defense is not quite as potent. They're projected for 23 points. It's a huge game for both teams here. And there's been a lot made about the Bhayshul Tuten goal line stuff, rightfully so. That is a very big deal. But also Jacksonville this month, they're 5th most in running back usage collectively. So Etienne didn't rip off explosives his last game, but he's still going to catch a couple passes. He still can rip off explosives. And I still think that he can get some goal line opportunities. So I don't want to completely write him off just because Tuten got a couple carries. That was the exception. All the other games before that, it wasn't like that. So I'm expecting Tuten to be involved at the goal line, but that does not mean that Travis Etienne goes to complete zero. So he's splitting reps on a team projected for 23 points. There's other guys we'll talk to splitting reps projected for 17.
A guy who has claimed the running back one role on his team, but they're only projected for just over 19, is Woody Marks. And he's facing the Kansas City Chiefs on the road. Your thoughts here on Woody?
He's just been super inefficient recently. He's coming off that like little foot injury. So we'll see about his practice time here. I think the Texans offensive line's been better pass protection wise, and they still just kind of get moved on the ground. You get Chris Jones here. Teams just like typically do not run the ball against the Chiefs. Like that, like almost never happens. Now Woody Marks can get loose in the pass game. So he's been rock solid. He's the RB 16 in usage, but he has not performed like that in a bit. Team total's low. I think he's fine.
It's Zach Charbonnet next. Anything you want to add here about Charbs?
They're just projected for 26 points, and he got subbed in for the goal line stuff. I think there's enough room for multiple guys to get home in Seattle.
This is one of those cases where a team with such a high total will be ranked higher than other quote unquote running back ones because their team could score more points. It's that simple.
Yeah, this is when the tiers get bad. Like if you're starting Zach Charbonnet, you know, like you're in trouble, I think. Like, and he's better than a lot of the guys we're going to talk to. Like, you want at least two of the top, 19, 20 guys.
How about Kareem Hunt behind an offensive line that probably has three backups going up against this Texans defensive line that, at least on the edge, it's Donnell Hunter and Will Anderson.
Yeah, it's not going to be a lot of fun. So it's right now, Josh Simmons, he's out. He's got wrist surgery. That's our left tackle. Jawan Taylor left last game. He's hasn't practiced. And then same thing with Trey Smith, who aside from Creed Humphrey is like the most important part of their run blocking. But Kareem Hunt played 64% of the snaps last week. He had 13 expected points. He's the RB6 in usage this month. He's going to get goal line carries most likely. And the Chiefs team totals like about league average at 22. So I don't love the play. I'm searching for guys that I can envision scoring more though.
Well, Omarion Hampton, we just had the Bucky Irving conversation last week. It sounds like based on reports that Omarion Hampton is going to return this week. We talked about it. They're at home and underdogs on Monday Night Football with a team total of less than 19 points. We know Hampton, even with Najee Harris, was getting about 70% of the work. When Najee Harris went down for those two games, he was getting like 85% of the work. We're coming off Kamani Vidal's best performance of his career. So once again, I ask, your snap share, touch share projection here for Omarion Hampton is what?
60-ish%. We'll see. I mean, he's coming off a fractured ankle. That's a serious injury. It's been 2 full months. They might get so desperate that they just like need Omarion Hampton's explosive potential and let this thing go. But it's the Philadelphia Eagles defensive line against the Chargers offensive line. The team total for the Chargers it's less than the Browns and the Jets. So like we can't be like, oh, he plays for Justin Herbert. It's a Justin Herbert with one hand and one of the worst offensive lines I've ever seen. So like right now, behind the Browns and the Jets, like that's the starting point for the Chargers this week.
Okay. Jaylen Warren is up next. You just spoke about a hand injury. Aaron Rodgers has a hand injury. This is a great note from Rich Rebar's worksheet this week. Jaylen Warren, again, facing the Baltimore Ravens on the road. He's averaging 4.8 yards per carry on under center runs this year versus 3.5 out of shotgun. I mean, that's a drop of 1.3 yards just based on where the quarterback alignment is and where he gets the handoff. So I am just assuming, based on how Aaron Rodgers' wrist was wrapped up last week, that everything once again is going to be from the pistol and the gun.
Right. And you get the Ravens this week, and we'll see about the offensive line injuries that the Steelers have seen. They're projected for 18.25 points. That's the fourth fewest of the week. The only teams below the Steelers this week, the Titans, the Raiders, and the Saints. So, I mean, it's and he's been losing snaps with Kenneth Gainwell, like not exactly 50-50, but it's pretty close. Like Kenneth Gainwell, we'll talk about him in just a second, but we're talking about committee backfields projected for 18 points now.
At this point in the calendar, your brain thinks of weird things. I'm just going to ask you, your guess on Caleb Johnson's closing ADP this past September. Overall.
Where it was?
Not running back. Overall, yeah.
Oh, he was probably at like 78th on Underdog. Yeah, somewhere in there.
79 overall on Underdog. Was that the worst pick this year? Just we're not talking about injuries here. Just flat out the worst pick.
I mean, Brian Thomas at 12 was no
12.
fun. There's been Saquon Barkley at 2.
Maybe I should say the worst running back pick.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there was a couple miserable ones. He was definitely on that list. That special teams blunder might have cost him his entire career. We'll see.
I agree. It really did. It really did. Okay. Kyle Monangai is next. We already mentioned DeAndre Swift. Anything you want to add here about Monangai?
In the 7 games since his post-bye rookie bump with DeAndre Swift healthy, he's averaging 10.4 half PPR points. That's enough for flex consideration. It's been going. Last week was his most usage in a game with DeAndre Swift of the entire season. They ran right through the Eagles. Could they do that against the Packers? We'll see. That's not a given, but there's a chance for it. The team total is just really low. But do you think he has who's riper for a explosive? Kyle Monangai, Jaylen Warren,
I think they
Hampton,
both are.
Kareem Hunt.
I think Monangai is, man.
Yeah, maybe Monangai. Yes, maybe I slide him up a couple spots here. Throw him ahead of Warren.
Okay.
But it's all in the same. It's 50-50 rotation. Team total's really low,
Okay, Aaron Jones left last week. I've actually seen a lot of buzz and questions about Jordan Mason. We're recording this so early that we're not exactly sure what Aaron Jones' status is, but immediately after they said he was basically fine and the scoreboard was so out of whack. So here he is for you with JJ McCarthy back at quarterback.
Right, which I guess is good news that he gets JJ McCarthy back versus whatever we're calling last week. I mean, it's the Commanders' defense. It's a really bad defense. They're really slow. Maybe you get Aaron Jones against Bobby Wagner out there, but the Vikings' offensive line's also banged up. So he's just kind of separated from Jordan Mason, in all ways. It just comes down to the injury. The team total is actually kind of all right. It's at 21.75 points. It's the same as the Dolphins, same as the Eagles. So that's where I'm if I get full participations from Aaron Jones, I think I'm going to be forced moving him kind of a lot higher than this. So
okay,
1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Bam Knight is up next. We got word on Wednesday morning that Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey Benson, Josh Sweat, and Walter Nolan, which is basically the last 2 off seasons for the Arizona Cardinals,
yes,
they're all not practicing.
Yes.
Trey Benson has to be activated by December 10th, or else he just misses the entire rest of the season. So now Bam Knight gets the Los Angeles Rams.
So in the first half, a lot more Bam Knight, just a little bit of Michael Carter. And then when they were passing the ball a little bit more, in the fourth quarter, a little bit more Michael Carter. So he's a little bit game script dependent here, but he's the early down hammer. The problem is you get the Rams up front, who are 4th best against fantasy running backs. I think they've given up just 2 touchdowns on the ground to running backs this entire season, and that's how Donovan Knight's going to be able to pay off. I do think that they get him to the edge, and he can rip off a couple kind of explosive plays, but we're talking about the margins here. This is just enough to get him on the flex radar. He's the RB26 and RB29 usage this month. I went right between those 2 numbers as a guardrail.
You messaged me this morning and said that for the last 18 hours, you've had some really incredible takes on the Washington Commanders backfield. Here is Chris Rodriguez at the Minnesota Vikings. What do you want to say for the last 24 hours?
Well, I went really deep into the Chris Rodriguez stuff, and he's out there, I'll give him credit here. He really wants to run through your face, and he can actually kind of do it. So that's how he scored at the goal line. He's a big dude. And he gets the rock. So the last 2 games, 12.1, 8.9 expected points. He's going to be the goal line back because he's about twice as big as JCM and Jeremy McNichols. That said, the Brian Flores defense just always wants to shut out the ground game. So it makes me nervous here.
Hayden did not message me. I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, I was probably messaging you about Marcus Mariota and how he's
probably
not terrible anymore,
Okay, Bhayshul Tuten is next. We already discussed him. Dave Montgomery is down here as much lower, I should say. Jahmyr Gibbs, running back 1. I will say, since Dan Campbell took over, DeMont has just 1 game of over 30% of the team's touches. Again, they're projected for a ton of points, and these are typically our touchdown spots here for Dave Montgomery. Might have some of the best odds of the season on that over and underdog.
Maybe, but the problem, like you said, is he's not on the field enough anymore. So the past month, Gibbs averaging almost 18 expected points. David Montgomery's at 7.6. So that's really low. And I do think the reason why the split's getting better is, 1, they fully trust Jahmyr Gibbs, as they should. David Montgomery is probably slowing down to a lot of touches over his career. But I think the big reason is the interior offensive line is bad. And David Montgomery is like the between tackles hammer. So if you have to get to the edge a lot and catch passes, like obviously you need to play Jahmyr Gibbs more. And I think all the Quinshon Williams stuff that we're talking about, the 5-man fronts, I think all that stuff works against David Montgomery. But at the same time, he can still fart into the end zone because the team total is much higher than the guys that he's ranked around.
Yeah, his projected touches in this game are just 8.5 rushing attempts as a higher or lower. Okay, Devin Neal. This is where we get into the guy's a starting running back, but how much does the starting running back actually matter? I mean, the Bucks have a 67% success rate against backfields. That's third in the league. They're allowing a first down or a touchdown at a league low 17.1%. I don't think Devin Neal's average talent is going to win out here against the Bucks defense.
Yeah, I appreciate Devin Neal for what he is. He played 82% of the snaps. If you're on the field, you get fantasy points at this position. The problem is it's the Saints offensive line is a total disaster right now, and you get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is it's the opposite. So it's a pass funnel Buccaneers defense. The team total's at 17 points. They can always, get back to the Taysom Hill stuff. There's a lot less Taysom Hill stuff this last week, but they can, it's just in their DNA. They always want to do it. So Devin Neal, you are a flex play if you must, but hopefully we have multiple running backs inside the top 18 because it's been a pretty ugly podcast for like the last 15 minutes. Let's be honest here.
Well, we can just close this out. I mean, we have every backfield has already been discussed except for Tony Pollard and the Titans. So it goes Blake Corum next, then Tony Pollard, then Tyler Algier, then Kenny Gainwell, and we close things out with Samaje Perine. Your final words on the show.
Yeah, with Pollard, he's getting like most of the first half touches, and then when they're down by a bunch of points, it gets a little bit more Tyjae Spears. This game, in theory, is going to be closer because it is the Browns, but at the same time, that means you have to go up against Myles Garrett. So we'll see about there. I think with Blake Corum, Tyler Algier, these guys, they can rotate in at the goal line. Like they at least have a goal line path, and then we'll see about everybody else. I guess with Samaje Perine, he did have a season high 13 expected points this last week. He's rotating in with Joe Burrow. So like if you absolutely had to, I guess, but it's
okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening to the Absolutely Have To podcast.
Some people have to.
We'll be back here actually after Thursday Night Football. That's when we'll unleash our wide receiver rankings. So be on the lookout for that after watching a glorious outing of Cowboys Lions. And you're thinking, I need more offensive firepower on my team. Check it out. We'll have wide receiver rankings here for you on the channel. Also, if you have like your Spotify Wrapped or YouTube recaps and we're one of your top listened to or watch shows or at the top, let us know. Send it to me in a tweet. Send it to Hayden in a tweet. I love seeing those. And I'll probably retweet you at the same time because I like giving myself a pat on the back.
Yes. And send it to our bosses. I'll give them their phone numbers. You can text them your Spotify Wrapped. That'd be great.
Yeah. Tag Nick Rudman.
Yes.
And Liam Rockline in all of those.
Yes.
Do that. All right. That does it. Thanks to Weeds and Mosho and Hayden. Up the Villa. We'll talk to y'all soon. See ya.